Some of what I'm sharing comes from a paper by Dr. Miriam Stark Parent, and some of it comes from my personal experience. Matthew 10:16, Jesus says, "I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves." In our circle of responsibilities, remember, of dynamics in counseling, one of them is the counselor's responsibility. And that's what we're talking about here, is the counselor's responsibility to set proper boundaries. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, one evening, we got a call at our house from a guy I'll call Gary. Gary was upset. It was about 9 o'clock at night, and he'd had an argument with his wife. She was a very strong, dominating person. He was kind of mild-mannered. And this fight had gotten very loud, and she had told him to leave. She'd kicked him out. So he was calling me from a phone booth. Remember those? And he was standing on a corner talking on the telephone, and he called and said, "You know, I don't have anywhere to go. Could I come and stay at your house tonight?" I talked to my wife, and she agreed we could, and I went to get him. But he said, "Well, I need to go back to my house because I don't have any clothes for work tomorrow. But will you come in with me?" So we did. I can still picture it. We got to this house, it was dark, walked up this long walk, and as soon as we walked in the door, his wife, who I'll say was Marge, just started screaming. She was yelling at him, she was yelling at me. I'm their pastor, right? And she's carrying on. We walked into this bedroom. He's at the closet behind me. I'm standing here, the bed is here, and she's on the other side. And she's yelling. And he's getting his suit and things, and I kept trying to talk her down, quiet her down. Well, it was a long evening. 3 hours later, I went home. I left them together, smiling. I think I did a good job as a pastor. But about 2 days later, I crashed into a terrible depression. It was just awful. I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was scared of the dark. I couldn't watch a drama on television. The only thing I dared to watch was something that was really a stupid comedy. I didn't want the phone to ring. I didn't know what to do. I had felt low before, but never depressed like that. After a few days, I had to go back to work. I'd go to my office, and when I was there alone, sometimes I would just be down on the floor, crying out to God, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to make it go away. Well, what happened in that story was that after about 2 or 3 weeks of this, and I had told the elders, I'd asked them to pray for me. I didn't really realize that my depression might be related to that incident at the house. Now I'm quite sure it was. I grew up in a home where I never saw anyone fight. I'm not used to people being angry, and so when people were angry, I think it really kind of did a number on me. Well, what happened in the short part of that story is that I remembered reading something about how God might heal a person's memory. And there's some crazy stuff that's taught in that regard, but this simply was bring back a memory that's painful and just pray that God would come into that memory. So I did that. I brought back that memory. I can still picture it to this day. And there I was standing, and there she was yelling, and I found myself angry. I said to God, I was angry with God. I said, "Where were you? Where were you? Why did I have to take this all by myself?" And it was like he spoke to me and said, "I was right there next to you. And what's more, you did a good job." And that was very real to me. Well, after that all passed, and the depression lifted after about a month, there was a sense of melancholy that continued for another couple months. But even after just a few weeks, the elders of our church told me that I may not counsel them again. They put a wall. They said if they need help, they'll have to talk to somebody else. You cannot see them. That was a boundary, because it turns out I wasn't able to handle that situation. It was one of the lessons I've learned about setting boundaries. And that's what we want to talk about. Pastors need to have boundaries. Boundaries are good for the other person, and they're good for you. Boundaries in counseling give a structure and support so that good things can happen. It gives safety to the client or the counselee, and it keeps a kind of emotional distance for the pastor. You cannot get emotionally pulled into every counseling situation, or you'll be hurt and you won't be useful. You're not useful to people because you feel the same pain they do. That doesn't make you a better counselor. That actually harms you. You don't want your doctor to be like that. You don't want to have a doctor who feels as sick as you do. That wouldn't help you. Well, same with your counselor. You want somebody who can keep a certain distance, a boundary, so that when you go home, you don't take all these things with you. A boundary is personal space. It's emotional space. It's spiritual space. Good boundaries are clear, and they're flexible, but they're firm. So, and we'll give you some examples of that. But they need to be there, and people need to know they're going to be there. Both sides, you and the counselee, need a boundary. Boundaries don't protect a pastor from hurt, but they are meant to protect you from danger, because there is danger in relationships sometimes if we're not careful. Let me tell you another story. When I was a young pastor, I worked with young adults, and we had a group of young adults. And one night, this young gal named Kathy started coming. Kathy was a nurse in a nearby hospital. She was a little thing, and she was kind of nervous and flighty. I noticed that as soon as we started teaching, she was sleeping. Now, I'm used to people sleeping while I talk, but it seemed to me she was out pretty quickly, and I wondered what was going on. We could sense that Kathy was very needy, very emotionally needy. Then she started calling me every day, just to chat, nothing important. She'd just call and talk and talk. And I thought, I can't keep doing this. We can't. And so finally one day I said, Kathy, we can't keep doing this. You can't call me every day. I don't have time for that. And you can call me if it's important, but not every day. Well, it wasn't maybe a week or two later that I got a call that Kathy had attempted suicide. She had lived, and I went to the hospital to see her. She was in the intensive care ward. If I remember right, she had taken medications. And what I figured out was that as a nurse, she knew various doctors, and she was getting prescriptions from more than one doctor who didn't know about each other. And that's why she was falling asleep. Well, she had too many prescriptions, and one night she decided to take a lot, and she could have killed herself. That was her intention. Well, when I stood there by her bedside, and she started telling me about some of the things she was facing, I said, Kathy, why didn't you call me? Well, what do you think she said? You said I couldn't call you. Well, I had a friend at the time who knew Kathy, who was a counselor. My friend's name was Eileen, and Eileen said, you cannot let her do that to you. She is manipulating you. Don't let that work. Don't let that happen. That was a boundary issue. It's interesting that later Kathy attempted suicide again, and finally she had to be committed to the state hospital, which is not a pretty place. I remember that in that story, calling her, I couldn't get to see her, so I called her on the telephone. The phone was in a hallway, and you never knew who would answer it. Maybe no one would answer it. They might answer it and just leave it hanging. But one night I got a hold of her, and she said, this place is terrible. She says, they're stealing my things. All she had left was a little radio, and she'd put it under her pillow at night when she went to bed, and she'd listen to a Christian radio program that played music, and there was a man who would talk about the things of God. And then one night, he talked about the love of God, and he talked about the Father's love for her. And something happened in Kathy that night when she listened. Somehow it clicked, and she understood it, and she believed it. And within 3 days, she was out of the hospital, and she never went back. She suffered from physical illness all her life. She never really was well, but she never went back. She'd call me almost every year around Christmas and tell me how she was doing. She'd write me letters. The night she had listened to the radio, she'd heard somebody sing the old hymn, The Love of God. Do you know that song? The last verse says, "If we with ink the ocean filled, and were the skies of parchment made, were every stalk on earth a quill, and every man a scribe by trade, to write the love of God above would drain the ocean dry, nor could the scroll contain the whole, though stretched from sky to sky." That was the song that changed Kathy's life. I was so proud to know Kathy. On your screen, you'll see a picture of Kathy not long before she died a couple of years ago. But I had to learn to set a boundary. That's a boundary story. Well, where are counselors and pastors vulnerable? Why do we need boundaries? One, you have to have a boundary that guards how you are projecting yourself to another person. There are things that we fall into that are not healthy. Sometimes we call these Messiah traps. Like, I have to be the healer. I have to have the answers. I have to please them. They have to like me. I have to fix everything. I have to be the parent. Those are dangerous ideas. And some of you who listen to this are prone to some of those. And so you'll have to be careful. You have to set a boundary. You are not their parent. You are not the fixer. You cannot please them in everything. You have to know where to draw that line. Another boundary that pastors have to be careful of is to not misuse Scripture. If you're training for the ministry, you perhaps have been around long enough to have run into times where people use the Bible in the wrong way. To use the Bible in the wrong way, as I said earlier, is like giving people bad medicine. It's not good. The Bible can do harm if it's not used for the right thing. If you use a verse that's out of context or doesn't mean what it to them what you think it means, that's dangerous. So one of the boundaries we have to set is to use Scripture properly from its context. Don't just pull verses out. Read them in their context so you know what the Bible is really promising. And one other boundary, a very important one in counseling, is you cannot take responsibility for their decision. They have to want to get help. They have to want to take the step. It's not your job to get them to do the right thing. You can pray for them, you can walk alongside of them, you can invite them into your life, but ultimately you cannot run things for them. They have to want to do the right thing.
We invite you to participate in the International Bible Teaching and Gospel Sharing Project. Whether these Christian expanded educational opportunities will become available to people around the world depends on all of us. We very much need and appreciate your prayer and financial support. For more information, please visit TVSEMINARY.com.
How do boundaries operate? Well, in a minute I'm going to tell you 4 boundaries, but here are some general things. Time. How much time you give to people. That's a boundary. Don't give to people too much time. Don't get too involved. So that's what happened to me that night at that counseling situation. I didn't realize it. I don't think I could have avoided it because I didn't know any differently, but I got too involved emotionally. Another boundary is how much you say about yourself or your family. It's useful to sometimes talk about your own experience, but you need to be careful. You need to protect the privacy of your own life, of your wife and your children. You need to be prepared for anything you say there that could be talked about somewhere else, and you want to be careful about that. Another boundary is the kind of activities you are involved with this person. It's a strange thing that you counsel people from your church because you see them next time at a church dinner or in the worship service or in a Sunday school class. You see them in lots of settings. They might be your friends. But you also have to remember you're always the pastor. And that reminds me of another thing is if you are a pastor, you're always a pastor. You never get to take that hat off. You are always that. And so you must be careful about how you portray that. You never get to just leave that life behind. People always think of you this way. You have to take that responsibility seriously. There are times where it's okay to cross a boundary because it's elastic. But you need to know where those are. If I choose to give a 90-year-old grandma in my church a kiss on the cheek, that's pretty safe. But I wouldn't do that for everyone. There's some elastic in these things. If you don't have good boundaries, you are liable to burnout. Weak boundaries lead to burnout. You don't guard your time. You don't have days off. You don't rest. You don't protect yourself from dangerous relationships or from too much disclosure. And those things take a toll on you as a pastor. You can't do that. You need to be careful. You have to set boundaries that protect you, just like with the couple that I was told I couldn't see any longer. You have to be careful. There are some things you just can't carry, and we're different. Some of you can handle things that others can't, but we need to know what those boundaries are. You need to know how to rest, to get away, to have a place to be separate. So those are some of the things. In our next lecture, we're going to just talk about 4 common boundary issues.